Thank you again, everyone, for coming across today's webinar session. These sessions are, again, created as an opportunity for you guys as our members to gain access to additional information and best practices within public works. Today's session is in collaboration with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. We have Phil Gretsch, who's going to be our presenter today, delivering on the Way2Go mapping and all that as well. Really, what I'll do is handing over to Phil. Phil, feel free to take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I guess first question I have, I'm just curious on the understanding the audience already has of the National Spatial Program. Has anyone not heard of this program before or not been presented to? Fair to say that most people have not, pretty well don't know much about it. I just need to know where to pitch it, that's all. Okay, well, I want to take the silence as most people probably are not aware of what we're doing. And so I shall start from the beginning and we can take it from there. So just let me open up my deck here. Now I'm going to move pretty quickly on this. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Terrific. I'm going to move pretty quickly. There is a bit to cover. It's because we're doing a lot and there's a lot coming your way, our way shortly. And but look, if you have any questions, maybe just hold them back and I can get to them at the end. How does that sound? Okay.
Fantastic.
Sorry. Okay, so I guess to start, one of the #1 complaints of the NHVR is our inability to route a truck in the first instance. So a truck industry comes in, they want to apply for a permit, they drop a waypoint on a map from A to B to C, and the outcome is a negative result in that what we're plotting is actually incorrect. And what that does do, it delays the ability for us to generate a permit at the highest level. So we need to fix this problem. Unfortunately, it's a problem that's it's been around for a long time. And it's not as easy as one may sound, as it first sounds like, and I'll explain to you in a second as to why that is. So being benefits driven, we had to look at what are we trying to do at the end of the day? Why are we doing this? So we need to have the ability to display, obviously, all the heavy vehicle networks on a single source of truth base wire map. And what that means is we need to have the ability to show those networks spatially, which means every segment of road can be broken down into ownership, into what trucks can go on what roads at what times against what conditions, etc. We need to have the ability for road managers to gazette and pre-approve routes in real time. Right now, it's a paper-based, email-based system, and it could take months to pre-approve a route. We need to have the ability to send out instant alerts in times of national disasters. So as an example, New South Wales, near just south of, where was it? Newcastle, the Hunter Valley region went underwater a few months ago. And we issued permits to trucks saying, yep, go take this road. You're okay. And all of a sudden there's a flooding. So we need to have the ability for a road manager to come into our system and basically close a road based on an emergency. That'll flow into our system. Not only will it stop us from issuing permits on roads that we really shouldn't be issuing permits for because of this, but we can also see who we've issued a permit for in the past. And we can then send a warning out to the drivers saying, hey, look, we've issued you a permit 3 days ago. This road is now underwater. Stop if you can and take this route instead. So that's what we're trying to get to with this. We want to be able to push routes to or maps to in-cab devices, to mobile devices. So I'm not sure if you're aware of it now, but a permit, as an example, some of these permits are 70, 80, 100 pages in length, and they're all text-driven. And they'll have the routes written in words in these permits. Now, no human alive can actually read this and drive at the same time. And the reason why we can't actually send routes today to industry is because of licensing. We don't own the data. And so what happens is we're not allowed to send it to them. We give those routes in the form of paper and the permit to the drivers. and then we expect them to basically follow it, which is a problem. So we're looking at solving that one as well. And at the end of the day, we need to have a single source of truth for a national a transportation heavy vehicle network. So we need a consistent way to show what trucks can go on what routes across the country. So basically, actually, I misjudged the slides. Sorry about that. I shall jump over here as a part of the problem. So this is what industry is seeing today. Here's a New South Wales cut and paste of a state map. Different state, different state, different state, different state, different state, and that's the NHVR. Now, as a driver who's going from Cairns, going through Coffs Harbour, and he's got drop-off points all over New South Wales, through Victoria to South Australia, they're looking at how many different maps with different colors, and they're confused around the meaning of these maps. So it really is about standardizing how these maps look and the language to which they use these maps. As an example, a restricted road in New South Wales is different than a restricted road in Victoria. It's my understanding that in New South Wales, you can restrict a road, and that means no trucks allowed, but send us a permit and we'll assess it. Well, in Victoria, a restricted road is, it's restricted, do not send us a permit, no trucks ever. So from a driver's perspective, when they're looking at the word restricted on a map, they actually don't know what it fully means. And then we wonder why there's misinterpretation issues moving forward. So some of the challenges, I've talked about some of the challenges that we've had, and this is just nothing more than a summary of those challenges. From a data perspective, that is critical because we always talk about aligning systems. We say, if everyone gets on the same system, it's so much easier to use. It's actually not so much a system thing, but it's a data thing. And if we're not using the same cut of data, then we can't merge all of this, we can't bring it all together in a unified way. There has to be a standard to which we follow. And based on that standard, and only then, once we standardize it, can we then share it, can we then reutilize it, and we're all speaking from the same playbook. So what we've done as part of this solution is we've decided to make, we made a decision to use OpenStreetMap. The OpenStreetMap is an open source, it's sort of like the Wikipedia for maps. And it's crowd driven by the public. And when we first looked at OpenStreetMap, we thought, oh boy, crowd driven, this doesn't seem good at all. But when we looked at the quality of the maps, we were pleasantly surprised that in many cases, it's better than the maps found and owned by the states. And I'm not trying to finger point at the states in any way, shape, or form. They're doing a great job in themselves. But when we actually start comparing the data is better on OpenStreetMap than it is on a lot of street maps. So other companies that are using OpenStreetMap, you can see there's some of the biggest players in the world are using this, and they're using it for a reason. They're using it because it's accurate mapping. And one company that's not on there is it drives Bing Maps, which is the Microsoft set of maps. So pretty powerful, a pretty powerful mapping solution that we're starting to use. Now I'm just gonna take you to another screen for just 1 second here. Can everyone see that screen?
Yep.
Okay, terrific. So in a nutshell, what we're basically doing to solve these problems is we're taking OpenStreetMap as it is, and it's got data such as direction of travel. It's got things like turning direction. Sometimes you could turn left, sometimes you can turn right, sometimes you can't at all. So there's a lot of different data sets. There's a lot of different variables inside OpenStreetMap that we actually need to route a heavy vehicle. Now, what we're then doing is taking a cut of that map every single day. Every 24 hours, we're going to have updated maps versus the maps that we have today, which are almost 2.5 years old. Once we get a cut of this OpenStreetMap, it goes into what we call the Way2Go system. And this is where the road managers, we're going to provide the ability for a road manager to log into Way2Go and update the heavy vehicle map on top of OpenStreetMap. So what that means is if there's an existing B double network, for example, and Debbie, the road manager, wants to add a segment of road to that existing network, it's a matter of logging in, clicking on that road on the map, saying B double, save, off you go. And then that road then flows into the route planner. And that route planner is then what generates the routes for the end users. So it's a very, very powerful tool. We're also talking about the ability to create a network in Way2Go, the ability for a road manager to update road ownership. So as an example, there's lots of great battles going on all over Australia, including New South Wales, in particular in New South Wales, around road ownership between councils and states and around state forests, around private land, who owns this section of road. And when we actually look at the data, there is no clear national data set that actually shows road ownership, which is pretty unbelievable considering we're in the 21st century. So that's another problem we're looking at solving. But the point is, this is based on a self-serve network, based on the OSM data set. We're going to have, for the first time, the ability to use near real-time data that then flows into the route manager and takes into consideration the heavy vehicle network. It takes into consideration the pre-approved routes. And then that will flow into the permit process moving forward. So very, very powerful tool. Now, one of the things that we've been hearing and listening to, et cetera, is the ability to share the data. So as I talked about earlier, we want to be able to send this data off to the drivers themselves on whatever apps they're using. It could be into their, if they're a bigger company like Toll or Lindsay's, it'll go into their ERP system. If it's a smaller company, it'll flow into their mobiles, into their in-cab devices. But the importance of giving them the ability to have this data is critical. But also from a council perspective, we want to open this through REST APIs, which is just a form of sending data over. We're going to be making all of this data available to councils and states themselves. So for the first time, you can consume all this great spatial data from a single source of truth, knowing that this source of truth is empowering every other council in the country. So now we're comparing apples to apples, and you can use that data for any purposes you want, whether it be analytics, whether it be for infrastructure and planning, whether it be for asset management. It's your choice. You can use that data whenever you want, however you want, with no restrictions whatsoever. And of course, that data from our perspective will flow into our existing data warehouse capabilities, where we're then going to have which will then enhance our BI reporting along with analytics. So we're really looking at this full circle ecosystem and trying to find ways how to self-perpetuate. How do we create a methodology that allows the system to almost grow upon itself? And basically, this is what we came up with. It's quite unique. We don't know of anyone else, quite frankly, doing this anywhere in the world. So we think we're quite different doing this. Not only are we talking about standardized data, but we're talking about standardized workflow, standardized processes. We're talking about a tool for road managers at a national level where they can manage networks, pre-approvals, and road ownership. But it's a tool for road managers to start communicating with each other. So as an example, let's say I get a permit and it's not mine. Let's say I'm in Dubbo, and I'm being asked to consent to a truck using this road, and it's near my council, but it's not in my council. And so what you would do is the road manager in Dubbo would reject that permit, saying this isn't mine, send it to the right road manager. Okay. And I was just getting very animated and dynamic right after, so I think you missed
we missed that
experience, which I won't try again. Maybe that's what killed it. So my apologies, everyone.
There's too much energy coming through.
I think so. So I guess, did you hear me? I was speaking about the road manager in Dubbo. Did you catch on to that bit?
No, I hadn't got that far.
Okay, so I'll give you a quick update on that one. As an example, when we talked about the data itself, having the ability for Way2Go to not only update the heavy vehicle, give road managers the ability to update the heavy vehicle network, the ability to pre-approve and to manage road ownership. So as an example, permits today are being issued to the incorrect road managers. And what happens is that road manager will reject the permit, send it back to the NHVR and saying, hey, this isn't mine. We'll then manually make a change and send it to the right road manager. Now, under that example, what they would do in the new world is basically log into Way2Go, change your road ownership, and I could say, yep, Phil doesn't believe this belongs to him. It belongs to Tim Hansen, and send it to Tim, who's in the neighboring council. And then Tim can either accept it or reject it. But what's important is it's one change once. The way it stands today is even though the road manager is rejecting those permits, they can still get permit requests ongoing, even though we know it's correct, because we have no way to lock in those road manager names. And that's a problem today. So I guess the way to go at the Way2Go application it is about networks, pre-approvals, road ownership, but it's also a way to process that information. It's about standardizing how they communicate to one another. Because as we know in government, one of the big challenges is the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing. It's about communication. So this really is a communication medium that'll bring road managers together so they can facilitate conversation in relation to the heavy vehicle industry in one specific spot, where they can talk networks, they can talk pre-approvals, road managers can talk to the state can talk to the road managers, and vice versa. So it really is a powerful tool that will bring road managers together in a cohesive way. And I guess just on that note, we've put through a great deal of effort as we're building the system out to make it as easy as possible for road managers, council, states to actually use. The last thing we want to do is create a tool that puts more work on councils, more work on the states, because we know you guys are already burdened. You guys have, you're more than likely you're understaffed. There's too much work building up. So we want to help alleviate that pain. So from our perspective, that is a key benefit that we really do need to meet. And we think that the solution will move the road managers away from being consent managers, which is what they are today, and more into their true role, their true calling, which is road managers manage a heavy vehicle network versus just giving consents. See this as a massive transformation program in Australia, but getting this right will have a significant amount of economic benefits, not just locally with the council, but for the state and nationally as well. There's so many levels of benefits where the efficiencies will be found. And when you start looking at compounding that up on from one to another, to another, to another, it turns into a very, very big number. But it really starts with the time and effort that's found within the road managers themselves. Now, very briefly, I want to highlight to you what's coming. November 1, we're doing a soft launch of the new route planner. We're going to be rolling out a new route planner. That new route planner will be, that new route planner will be using the OSM base layer maps. And in the first instance, we're going to be using a couple of networks based on Victoria. We just chose Victoria because they had data that was ready to go. But we're working very closely with Brett in New South Wales, and that is going to be shortly thereafter in the ranks to get the New South Wales networks into the system as well. So from a Way2Go application perspective, the road manager will have the ability to modify road ownership, as you can see in the second box over here. So what that means is they can basically say, yep, this road is mine, this road is not mine, and a communication tool between the road managers, as I described earlier. We're going to be obviously building out a pretty cool looking user interface with that, and that'll be part of November 1. Now, in terms of the ability to update the heavy vehicle maps and the pre-approvals, that's happening in the background. We've been building that one out now for about 3 or 4 months. And we're going to continue to build that out until about the first quarter of next year. And then we'll start doing incremental releases after that. Now, I guess from a November 1 perspective, we're going to be, when I say soft launch, it will be a soft launch. We're going to invite 3 or 4 transport companies to start using the new route planner, and only them will have the ability to see it. We're then going to choose 2 or 3 road managers, and basically we will allow those transport operators to apply for a permit. Sorry,
I'll mute myself.
No worries. So those transportation companies will be allowed to apply for a permit using the new system that'll go to the road, that'll go directly to the road managers. And based on that and how well that takes place, we'll then introduce more and more transportation companies to it. Excuse me, and more road managers. Now, we don't have a detailed schedule on when that's going to happen, because I want to be data driven versus time driven. So if it meets the quality criteria, we could release this up to 10 more transportation companies and 10 more road managers within a week. Or there's nothing stopping us from doing 20 in 2 weeks. But we need to be data driven, and it needs to be based on criteria in that, is the system working and operating as it's supposed to? Is there any bugs, that sort of thing. Now, a key message that we want to highlight to everyone is it is about OSM in the background. I'm going to give you a quick little demo here, if I can. Let's try this one. Okay, please tell me you see a screen.
Yeah, it's better.
We do.
Awesome. Yes, success. How many IT guys does it take to share a screen? Okay. So this is what you're seeing is the Way2Go application. So I'm going to zoom in here. Now, what you can see here, these are council borders, or so we think. This is what our data is giving us. This is what our data is telling us as council borders. So when we go to RM borders, oops, here we go. And I'm going to go down here as an example. What this is saying is inside this great big box is a council. Cool. But here you can clearly see a national park. But here around Mount David could be private land, could be utility lands, could be state. So when we talk about council borders and council roads versus state roads and private roads and mishmash, there really is quite a bit of there's a lot of inconsistency across the country. There's a lot of inconsistency in New South Wales. And what our tool is going to do is, I don't really see this as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing, in that for the first time, we're going to have the ability to actually update the data once and for all. So you can imagine how powerful this will be once we get this data updated by the hundreds of road managers out there. We can then share this out, and for finally to be a source of truth, across Australia for this type of data set. Now I'm going to zoom into, I'll go to Blacktown as an example. So here's the roads as an example. Now, as you know, when trucks travel, they have the first mile and they have the last mile. So one of the things that we've noticed is there's a lot of addresses that we actually don't have in any system, in that there's a lot of farms that work on PO boxes. They don't actually have an address in some system. The drivers just know where to pick up that produce. And there's a lot of depots that aren't addressed. We don't know, imagine a depot in the middle of Sydney, and there's 3 ways into that depot. Now, for some trucks, all 3 driveways could be perfectly fine. But for some trucks, there's only one suitable driveway where that truck can go on. So having that type of information in OSM is critical for us to make a determination on a route. So what we're basically highlighting to everyone is, if the information is not in OSM today, i.e. address information or other information that you feel is relevant, anyone can go into the system today and anyone can update it. And once it gets updated, it comes straight through into our system and off we go. So the NHVR doesn't see ourselves as the map owner of this. We see ourselves more as a user, as a custodian, but we really are counting on the wider community to get the data right for us. And again, there's a lot of reasons why this information is quite good and better than state information, which I won't really get into why now. But what we can say is we're confident enough to use this moving forward. But just on another point here, probably not the best example, but here is, those are tracks. What we're also finding is, here's an example here. That's a four-way intersection right now. But what we're finding is there's a lot of roundabouts being added and four-ways are going, or vice versa. So depending on whether it's a roundabout or a four-way, will change the perspective of the road manager on whether a heavy vehicle can or can't use that. So when we talk about changing data sets, that's a really good example of a data set that's constantly changing. So in the first instance, before we start talking about the ability to update a heavy vehicle network, in our opinion, let's talk about the need to assign ownership and get their owners right across this country on who owns what segment of road. And once we basically have that, that 90-10 view on all those different owners, then those owners can go into the system early next year and start updating their owned roads to the heavy vehicle network. I'll make it a B double or an A triple or whatever it is. So the plan, it's a step plan, and it's basically beginning now and then rolling out till June 2022, where hopefully the benefits that we've stated in the business case will be met. So that is the highlight of what we're doing right now. Here's an Australian view. Let's see here. Oh, one more thing. You can see here, now I don't have it for New South Wales, and I'm really sorry to be showing you a Victorian example. But here's a B double network in there. So we're gonna have all the networks in the system. And basically on any given segment of road, the road manager will know what truck can use what segment of road and change it as often or as much as they want based on need and demand and safety, of course. So that's kind of it for me. You guys have any questions?
Well, just while people are thinking of questions, perhaps I was just going to mention that the big benefit that is in the magic that you guys are rolling out is that at the moment, yourselves as road managers, if you wanted to make a change of the kind that Phil's doing, that the process at the moment requires you to fill in a form to add something to the network. You send that to us. Because New South Wales, Transport for New South Wales is the current custodian of the road network, the digital maps of those, they'll add it to their maps. Then in somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks when they send us an upload, we'll upload that to ours. So from when you decide, having gone through that road upgrade that you've been wanting for years and years and years, to add that to the network, to when it actually gets featured on a map to stop transport operators applying for places they don't need to apply for anymore, that can take 6 weeks. It's a lot smaller than it used to be, but correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but from the chats that we've had, that will in the future be next to instant. So as soon as you want to, under the Way2Go mapping system, yeah, so that's a real big improvement for yourselves. So you will be more in direct control and less reliant on other parties to get in place what you want to happen. So that's kind of the flip side to what Phil said in that example about the emergencies there. if there's a washout of a bridge, or if there's a fire, like some of those examples we mentioned in the video meeting last week, for those of you who are back again for a second time, that you need to respond instantly, and this mapping system will allow you to do that. Just something to bear in mind there. That might prompt some questions. Thanks, Phil.
Well, what we ultimately, as we spoke about, we've recognized the need. At the end of the day, we're all here for industry. We have to make them efficient. That's a given. But we have to do it in the best interest of the community as well, which means safety. But at the same time, we recognize that the road managers, we have to help. We have to give you guys the right tools and the right process to make you more efficient. And our view is pushing you guys to email and to paper forms just complicates things and makes things worse and worse. So by providing a centralized tool that allows you to actually manage your networks and the pre-approvals and the ownership with a click of a button, we're hoping it's going to save you guys a lot of time, but as well as make it less complicated. Let's start rolling out solutions more based on the KISS principle than anything else. We need to make things easier for ourselves, so we could actually be more efficient in our day-to-day. So again, we've gone through great strides to make this as efficient, as easy as possible. We have a whole area here in our program for training, external and internal. But my messaging to the guys is it needs to be Facebook easy. Like, who's gone to a training class and to learn how to use Facebook, or who's gone to a training class to use basic Google functionality? Like, it should be so easy where it's self-intuitive. It's intuitive. You log in, I need to do click, 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 done. So that's the type of simplicity that we're looking at. Now, on some of the more, the edge cases on the tail end of things, yes, there could be a little more work, and you might need to have to have a wee bit of training, but nothing more than 5 or 10 minutes to teach you the functionality. But once that's done, it really should improve your lives significantly.
Hi, Phil. Can I ask a question? Towards the beginning, you mentioned pushing these routes out to displays for the carriers as a possibility. How do you envisage that's going to happen? Would it be via an app installed on the displays, or is it going to be some integration with the various manufacturers? How would that work?
Yep. So I think there's two components to that. The first one is the route planner itself. So on November 1, while we're going to have some network maps in the system, they won't be visible to the transport operator. All the operator is going to see is a map, right? Click on a waypoint, and behind the scenes, it'll take into consideration that network and then work its magic for a permit. Now, in the future, what we want to do is basically give them the opportunity to visually see where these networks are. And so it's to help them in their planning, and maybe give them options. We talk about intelligent routing. Maybe give them options. We can say, hey, if you are a B double, and you don't want to apply for a permit, we'll send you on a route that'll be all B double gazetted at 1,200 kilometers and no permit required. Cool. Or they could say, or we'll give them an option to say, hey, we'll use as many gazetted routes as possible, but you may need a permit. But if you take this option B, you're going to save 213 kilometers of travel. What would you like to do? Pay the $70 for a permit? Or do you want to go on a gazetted route? So this data will give us the ability to basically do that. And then the idea is to then share that heavy vehicle network data, again, back to industry. And I think that's part 2 of your question, where if they want to consume it, they can consume it. And it could be as simple as a KMZ file or whatever that can sit on top of any one of their existing applications that they're using. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thanks.
No worries. Does anybody else have any dissenters out there? Anyone who thinks this is a bad idea? Doesn't like it?
Phil, Daniel Nagle here from Gunnedah. Just wondering, have you guys considered, or is the industry concerned about the consistency that they're going to get from road managers? Obviously, some road managers are going to be better resourced and able to keep their networks up to date in comparison to others. Is that been a consideration, and is there anything proposed to try and manage that or assist councils?
Well, I think that's a big question. Look, I think it's a couple of things. What we're finding isn't so much the process today is long and convoluted and difficult, and in different states it's different. It's different on how it operates. As an example, in New South Wales, a lot of the councils in New South Wales deal directly with the NHVR. And when something is gazetted, the NHVR will then inform the New South Wales state that this has been gazetted. Victoria, on the other hand, they go through the state. A lot of them go through the state, then to the NHVR. So the processes are different. So we feel as though right now it's as bad as it's going to get. With the new process, it's only going to free up more of your time and to give you more ability to manage the heavy vehicle network. But I would say the one of the largest issues we have, there's the timing issues, but there's also the understanding of using, if everyone has the same paradigm in that, what trucks should be allowed in my environment? There is a rule, there's a lot of thinking in a lot of councils that big trucks are bad. We should never allow a big truck in, and it's a very debatable, it's a very debatable item to discuss. But at the end of the day, bigger trucks actually free up traffic, less to and from into the council itself, less permits itself, more efficient on fuel, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a very strong argument that's to allow bigger trucks. And I'm not trying to have a go or make an argument about big trucks or small trucks, but I think it's education around with all the road managers. If we can all get on the same page on the benefits and disbenefits of the heavy vehicle industry in a community, then we'll have better decisions, but we'll also have more consistent decisions. But when you've got 5 road managers who have varying degrees of understanding between the benefits and disbenefits, you're then going to have inconsistent decision making. And then basically when that goes back out to transport, their first incline is saying, NHVR, what are you doing? Then we have to explain on behalf of state and councils why sometimes these decisions are made. And sometimes, have to be honest, there is no rhyme or logic. We actually don't understand sometimes some of these decisions. They are few and far. So to me, it really is about getting everyone on the same page and working. I think there's an opportunity here for the councils to work with the state road managers a little bit more. A quick example, I'm on, I don't know, I'll pick a street called, Ann Street, somewhere in New South Wales. Now it crosses State Road 101 and Ann Street continues. So let's say Dan wants to gazette Ann Street, but it goes across the state road. Dan needs to have a conversation with the road manager on the state and get on the same page, because maybe there's a very good reason why the state will say no or the state will say yes. But then there's a wider opportunity when you start looking at these maps holistically. You can actually say, you know what, if I actually close this road and this road, and if I can get the state to open up this road and I'll open up this road, it's a more direct path for the trucks. We'll save 42 kilometers each trip coming through my council by changing these road formations, and it will be safer because there's one less school or something like that on there. So to us, having this visual view where you can then have meaningful discussions with the states and start getting on the same page on I guess the benefits and disbenefits is probably the number one thing I would suggest that needs to happen. Sorry for the long answer there. I'm a little passionate on this. I guess from my perspective, guys, when we do go live, we will be reaching out to some of the road managers, asking them to come on board in the various phases of the program. We're very, very keen, keeping in line with the KISS principle. We're very keen to get your feedback. And look, from my perspective, it's not negative, it's not positive, it's all constructive. So if there's something that we can do that will make your lives easier, please let us know. And I can't stress enough, now is, in the next 2 or 3 months, now is really the time. But I don't want to get into next year saying, oh, wouldn't it have been nice if we did this or if we did this? I'm just really highlighting, now is the time, and we are all ears. So if there are suggestions, and they make sense at a national level, look, we have no problem putting that into the pipeline and getting it built. Yeah, based on business benefits. So completely open to that.
Well, look, what I might do is I might do a bit of a quick wrap up. But look, thank you again for your session, and thank you everyone else for attending today's webinar. Really, that's the end of today's session. If you guys want to stay around and have a bit of a chat and network and put your cameras on and have a chat, you can do that as well. But I'll stop the recording for you guys to do that now. But really just enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully see you guys all next week for the part 3 of the session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.